You picked the wrong truck to stop today. Officer Derek Vaughn laughed when he heard the words, certain they came from another frustrated driver trying to sound important. Standing beneath the bright lights of a crowded interstate rest stop just outside Amarillo, Texas, he had no reason to believe that the calm black woman leaning against a blue Freightliner would soon turn his routine shift into the worst day of his career. The evening air carried the smell of diesel fuel and fresh coffee from the travel center as dozens of travelers moved through the parking lot. Long-haul truckers stretched their legs after hours on the road. Families hurried toward the convenience store. The constant rumble of engines echoed across the rows of parked rigs. Monica Hayes stood quietly near her truck, holding a paper cup of coffee in one hand while watching the sunset fade across the horizon. At 38 years old, she looked exactly like what everyone assumed she was, another truck driver finishing a long day behind the wheel. Her dark jacket showed signs of road wear. Her boots carried dust from hundreds of miles of highway. Nothing about her appearance suggested power, authority, or influence. That was exactly the way she preferred it. Across the lot, Officer Vaughn stepped out of his patrol SUV and immediately focused on Monica. His eyes narrowed. Something about her presence seemed to bother him before a single word had been exchanged. Beside him, Officer Kyle Mercer followed his lead, adjusting the radio on his shoulder. "That her?" Kyle asked quietly. Derek nodded. "Has to be." Neither officer explained what exactly made Monica suspicious. They simply started walking toward her while several nearby travelers slowed down to watch. Monica noticed them approaching long before they arrived. She took a slow sip of coffee and remained perfectly still. Experience had taught her that some situations revealed themselves faster when people believed they were in complete control. "Ma'am," Derek called out. "Need to ask you a few questions." Monica turned calmly. "Evening, officers." Her voice was steady, respectful, unbothered. Derek seemed disappointed by her composure. "This your truck?" Monica glanced toward the Freightliner. "Yes, sir." "Registration?" Monica reached into her pocket slowly. "Of course." Derek accepted the paperwork but barely looked at it before his attention returned to her. "Where are you headed?" "Oklahoma City." "Coming from?" "Albuquerque." The questions continued. Each answer arrived calmly. Each response seemed to irritate Derek more than the last. Around them, curious travelers began paying closer attention. A retired couple paused near the vending machines. Two truck drivers standing beside a fuel island stopped their conversation. A young man holding a phone subtly angled the camera toward the encounter. Monica noticed every detail without appearing to notice anything. Derek circled the truck, pretending to inspect it. "Mind telling me why you've been parked here so long?" Monica glanced at the large clock above the travel center entrance. "About 11 minutes. Several people nearby exchanged looks. Derek's jaw tightened. "Funny." Monica simply waited. Silence stretched between them. Most people would have become nervous by now. Most would have argued or tried to defend themselves. Monica did neither. Her patience seemed to frustrate Derek more than resistance ever could. Kyle shifted uneasily beside his partner. "Everything checks out so far," he muttered after glancing at the paperwork. Derek ignored him. His attention remained fixed on Monica. "Step away from the vehicle." Monica slowly placed her coffee cup on a nearby concrete barrier. "Is there a reason?" "Just do it." Travelers were openly watching now. The atmosphere had changed. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. Phones appeared. Monica stepped away from the truck exactly as instructed. Not because she was intimidated. Not because she was afraid. Because she knew something neither officer understood. Derek interpreted her compliance as submission. His confidence grew immediately. "See," he said loudly enough for others to hear. "Wasn't that hard?" Monica remained silent. Her eyes briefly moved toward the dashboard inside the truck. A movement so small no one noticed. No one except Monica. Derek continued speaking, unaware that the situation had already started shifting beneath his feet. "We're going to take a closer look." His tone suggested he had already decided what he wanted to find. Around them, the crowd grew larger. The rest stop lights flickered on as darkness settled across the Texas sky. Trucks idled in the distance. Engines hummed. Somewhere inside the travel center, a country song played through old speakers. Everything felt normal, ordinary, routine. Yet hidden beneath that ordinary moment, something had already been set into motion. While Derek focused on proving his suspicions, Monica had quietly slipped one hand into her jacket pocket. Her fingers pressed a concealed emergency trigger no larger than a car key. A single silent signal transmitted instantly. No flashing lights. No alarms. No dramatic reaction. Just a message traveling hundreds of miles in seconds. Monica removed her hand and returned it to her side. Derek never saw it happen. Kyle never noticed. Neither officer realized that somewhere far beyond the rest stop, people were already responding. And as Derek reached for the truck door, convinced he was about to uncover something important, he remained completely unaware that the signal Monica had sent moments earlier was already racing toward him faster than anything he could stop. Monica stood quietly beside the Freightliner as Derek opened the driver's side door and climbed into the cab without waiting for permission. The crowd outside shifted closer, sensing that something bigger was unfolding. Kyle remained near Monica, though his posture suggested growing uncertainty rather than confidence. He glanced at the paperwork again and then at Monica. "You have been driving this route long?" he asked. "A few years," Monica replied. "Pays the bills." Kyle nodded slowly. There was nothing unusual about her answer. Nothing unusual about her truck. Nothing unusual about the woman standing calmly beneath the rest stop lights while dozens of strangers watched her every move. Yet Derek continued searching as though he had already convinced himself that he would uncover something important. Inside the truck, drawers opened and closed. Storage compartments were checked. Flashlights swept across shelves and cabinets. Every few moments Derek would call out another question. "Who owns the rig?" "I do." "Any passengers today?" "No." "Anyone meeting you in Oklahoma City?" "No." Each answer came without hesitation, without attitude, without fear. The confidence in Monica's voice began attracting attention for a different reason. Several truckers exchanged looks. One older driver with silver hair folded his arms and muttered, "She does not sound worried." Another nodded. "That is because she knows something." Near the entrance of the travel center, a teenage employee stopped collecting shopping carts and focused entirely on the scene. Phones remained raised. Videos continued recording. Monica noticed them all. She also noticed the digital clock above the building. 7 minutes had passed since she activated the signal. Somewhere far away, people would already be moving. The thought never appeared on her face. Derek climbed down from the truck looking irritated. "Nothing yet," he said quietly to Kyle. "Yet." Kyle repeated. "Everything checks out." Derek ignored him. His frustration was becoming obvious. He walked around the truck once more, examining tires, lights, and storage compartments. The more normal everything appeared, the more determined he seemed to become. Monica watched him carefully, not because she feared what he might do, because she was studying him. People often revealed their true character when reality refused to match their assumptions. Derek stopped near the front grille and crossed his arms. "Funny thing," he said loudly. "Sometimes people look clean because they are very good at hiding things." Several members of the crowd nodded. Others looked less convinced. Monica remained silent. Derek stepped closer. "You have not asked why we stopped you. Would it matter?" Monica asked. The question caught him off guard. For a brief second, he had no answer. Of course it would matter. Monica tilted her head slightly. "Then why has nobody told me?" The crowd reacted immediately. A few people exchanged surprised glances. Even Kyle looked uncomfortable. Derek cleared his throat. "We received information." "About what?" Monica asked. "Suspicious activity." "What activity?" Derek stared at her. Again, he had no clear answer. The silence lasted just long enough for others to notice. A middle-aged traveler standing near the vending machines frowned. "That seems like a fair question," he said. Derek shot him a sharp look. "Mind your business." The man immediately stepped back. Monica said nothing. She did not need to. The moment had already shifted. People were beginning to question the situation for themselves. That made Derek even more determined to regain control. "Open that side compartment," he ordered. Monica complied. Inside were tools, spare parts, safety equipment, and maintenance records. Everything was organized with military precision. Derek examined each item while Kyle watched. "Most truckers do not keep records like this," Kyle said. "Maybe most truckers should," Monica replied. A few quiet laughs spread through the crowd. Derek slammed the compartment shut. His patience was wearing thin. Then something unexpected happened. A black SUV appeared at the far end of the parking lot. Nobody paid much attention at first. Vehicles came and went constantly at interstate rest stops. But Monica noticed it immediately. Her eyes followed the SUV as it parked near the edge of the property. Moments later, a second black SUV entered. Then a third. They parked separately, not together. Almost as if they were trying not to attract attention. Derek remained focused on Monica and never looked their way. Kyle noticed them briefly but dismissed them. Monica checked the clock again. 9 minutes. Right on schedule. She folded her arms and looked back toward the officers. For the first time that evening, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Derek saw it and mistook it for nervousness. "Something funny?" he asked. Monica looked directly into his eyes. "No, Officer Vaughn," she said calmly. "Not yet." The faint smile on Monica's face lingered only a second before disappearing completely. Derek noticed it and interpreted it as arrogance. That annoyed him more than anything else that had happened that evening. He had expected excuses, nervous explanations, maybe even frustration. Instead, the woman standing in front of him seemed almost completely unbothered by the growing crowd, the flashing patrol lights, and the questions that kept leading nowhere. "I think we are done being polite," Derek said. "Open the sleeper compartment." Monica nodded. "Go ahead." Her calm response seemed to catch him off guard again. Most people would have protested. Most truck drivers guarded their personal space carefully. Yet Monica stepped aside without hesitation. Derek climbed into the cab once more while Kyle followed behind him. The crowd shifted closer. Several travelers stood on tiptoe, trying to see inside the truck. A truck stop employee abandoned a stack of cleaning supplies beside the entrance just to watch. Everyone sensed the situation was building toward something. Inside the cab, Derek searched every cabinet, storage bin, and compartment he could find. He checked maintenance folders, shipping logs, emergency equipment, and personal belongings. Everything was organized with extraordinary precision. The deeper he searched, the more irritated he became. "This does not make sense," he muttered. Kyle picked up a binder from a shelf and flipped through it. "Everything is documented." "Too documented," Derek replied. "Nobody keeps records this clean." Kyle frowned. "Professional drivers do." Derek ignored him and continued searching. Then he noticed something tucked behind a storage panel near the rear of the sleeper compartment. His eyes immediately lit up. "What is this?" he asked. Kyle leaned closer as Derek pulled out a sealed envelope. Several members of the crowd could see the discovery from outside the truck and immediately began whispering. Phones rose higher. Monica watched quietly from the pavement. Derek opened the envelope and removed several documents. For the first time all evening, his expression changed. The papers contained photographs, maps, handwritten notes, and location reports. Kyle stared at them. "What is that?" Derek quickly flipped through the pages. "I knew it." His voice carried across the parking lot. "I knew something was wrong." The crowd immediately reacted. Conversations broke out everywhere. People who had begun questioning the stop now seemed unsure again. The documents looked serious, important, suspicious. Derek climbed down from the truck, holding the papers high enough for everyone to see. "Looks like we finally found something." Monica's expression never changed. "Did you?" she asked. Derek smirked. "You tell me." He waved the documents. "Would you like to explain these?" Monica glanced briefly at the papers. "Not particularly." The answer drew gasps from several onlookers. Derek looked pleased. Finally, he felt as though he had gained the upper hand. "You hear that?" he said loudly. "She does not want to explain them." A man near the fuel pumps shook his head. "That does not look good." Others nodded in agreement. The atmosphere shifted again. Suspicion returned. Exactly what Derek wanted. Kyle continued studying the papers. The more he looked, the less certain he seemed. "These are mostly locations," he said quietly. "Truck routes. Vehicle descriptions." Derek pointed at one of the photographs. "And what about this?" Monica glanced at it. "Interesting picture." Derek laughed. "Interesting. Very." The crowd exchanged confused looks. No one understood how she remained so calm. Derek certainly did not understand it. He stepped closer. "You think this is a joke?" "No." "Then start talking." Monica looked directly at him. "Have you actually read all of those documents?" Derek hesitated. "I have seen enough." "That was not my question." The crowd fell silent. Even Kyle stopped moving. Monica's voice remained steady, controlled. "Have you read all of them?" Derek glanced down at the stack. For the first time, uncertainty flashed across his face. The hesitation lasted only a moment, but Monica saw it. Kyle saw it too. So did several people recording the encounter. Before Derek could answer, one of the black SUVs parked across the lot quietly started its engine. Then another. Then the third. Their headlights switched on almost simultaneously. This time people noticed. Conversations stopped. Heads turned. The vehicles began moving slowly through the rest stop parking lot toward the growing crowd. Derek followed everyone's gaze and frowned. Monica simply watched them approach. Then she looked back at him and spoke in the same calm voice she had used all evening. "Officer Vaughn," she said, "if I were you, I would start reading those documents very carefully." Derek looked from Monica to the approaching SUVs and back again. The confidence that had carried him through the evening began to crack around the edges. The vehicles moved slowly through the parking lot, their dark paint reflecting the glow of the rest stop lights. Nothing about them appeared dramatic. No flashing emergency lights. No sirens. No aggressive movements. Yet the reaction around the parking lot was immediate. Conversations stopped. Travelers stepped aside. Even the truck drivers who had been arguing moments earlier fell silent. Kyle shifted uneasily beside Derek. "Do you know them?" he asked. Monica offered no answer. She simply watched. Derek lowered his eyes to the documents in his hands. For the first time all evening, he actually began reading instead of skimming. His expression changed almost immediately. The first page contained detailed observations. Dates, times, vehicle descriptions, locations. The second page contained photographs taken over several months. The third page contained names. Derek frowned. Something felt wrong. These were not the kinds of notes criminals usually kept. They were too organized, too professional, too precise. "What exactly am I looking at?" he asked. Monica remained calm. "You seemed very certain a few minutes ago." A few people in the crowd exchanged nervous smiles. Derek ignored them and continued flipping through the pages. The more he read, the more confused he became. Several locations listed in the reports were hundreds of miles apart. The observations followed patterns. Delivery routes, meeting points, vehicle movements. It looked less like evidence of wrongdoing and more like evidence gathered during an investigation. Kyle leaned over his shoulder. "Wait a second," he said quietly. "Those look like surveillance logs." Derek did not respond. One of the SUVs came to a stop less than 50 yards away. The second parked near the fuel island. The third remained closer to the entrance. The positioning appeared intentional, strategic. Yet none of the occupants exited immediately. That unsettled Derek even more. Monica glanced at the clock above the travel center. 12 minutes. Right on time. The crowd noticed her checking the clock and began whispering again. A woman recording on her phone lowered her voice. She knew they were coming. Her husband nodded. "Looks that way." Derek heard the comment and felt irritation rise again. He refused to surrender control of the situation. "Nobody is going anywhere," he announced. "This stop is still active." Yet his words carried less authority than before. Even Kyle noticed it. The younger officer looked toward the SUVs and then back at the documents. "Derek," he said carefully, "I think we should call this in. I am handling it. Maybe we should verify what these files are before going further." Derek shot him a look. "Since when did you become the supervisor?" Kyle immediately fell silent, but the concern remained visible on his face. Inside the crowd, several truckers began discussing the situation among themselves. One pointed toward the paperwork. Another pointed toward the SUVs. The narrative that Derek had controlled earlier was slipping away. People were no longer asking what Monica had done. They were starting to ask who Monica really was. Then the first door opened. A tall man in a dark suit stepped out of the nearest SUV. He was followed by a woman carrying a tablet and another man wearing a plain jacket. None of them displayed badges. None of them identified themselves. Yet they moved with a level of confidence that instantly drew attention. Derek watched them approach. Every instinct told him these were not ordinary travelers. Monica remained completely still. The newcomers stopped several yards away and surveyed the scene. Their eyes moved from the patrol vehicles to the crowd, then finally to Monica. The tall man offered the smallest nod. Monica returned it. The exchange lasted less than a second, but Kyle noticed. So did several people recording. Derek felt his stomach tighten. "Who are they?" he asked. Monica finally looked directly at him. "That," she said calmly, "depends on how much damage has already been done." The question hung in the air long after Monica spoke. Derek stared at her, searching for signs of fear, uncertainty, or regret. He found none. The three newcomers remained where they stood, neither advancing nor retreating. Their patience somehow made the situation feel even more serious. Around the parking lot, every phone remained pointed toward the scene. Travelers who had planned to continue their journeys now stood frozen beside their vehicles, unwilling to leave before discovering what happened next. Derek folded the documents under one arm and stepped forward. "I asked a question," he said. "Who are these people?" The tall man in the dark suit finally spoke. "That depends on whether you are asking as a curious citizen or as a law enforcement officer." His voice was calm and professional, not hostile, not intimidated. Derek frowned. "Excuse me. You heard me." The man glanced toward Monica. "Has she been detained?" Derek hesitated. "We are conducting an investigation." That was not the question. Several people in the crowd exchanged knowing looks. The same thing had happened multiple times throughout the evening. Derek kept demanding answers while avoiding simple questions himself. Carl noticed it too. The younger officer looked increasingly uncomfortable. The woman carrying the tablet stepped forward slightly. "Has this individual been arrested?" she asked. "No." "Has she been charged with a crime?" "No." "Has any contraband been discovered?" Derek's jaw tightened. "No." The woman nodded and typed something into the tablet. The simple action unsettled him far more than he wanted to admit. Monica remained silent. She understood exactly what was happening. Every question, every answer, every hesitation, everything was being documented. The crowd sensed the shift as well. Earlier, people had watched because they believed Monica might be in trouble. Now they watched because they suspected someone else might be. Derek looked back at the documents. "Then explain these." He held up the stack. The tall man extended his hand. "I will take those." "Not happening." The response came too quickly, too defensively. The man did not argue. "Interesting." Derek crossed his arms. "You are not taking evidence from an active investigation." The woman with the tablet looked up. "Evidence," she repeated. "You have already classified it as evidence." Derek immediately realized his mistake. Carl noticed it too. "Derek," he said quietly, "maybe we should contact the department." "I am the department right now." The statement drew several raised eyebrows from the crowd. Monica glanced toward the line of parked trucks and noticed something else. More drivers were arriving. Word had spread through radio chatter and social media posts. People wanted to know why a routine stop at a Texas rest area had suddenly attracted mysterious SUVs and suited officials. The tall man studied Derek for a moment before speaking again. "How long ago did you recover those documents?" "Why?" "Because chain of custody matters." Derek froze. The phrase landed like a weight. Chain of custody. Not something ordinary travelers discussed. Not something random observers brought up during a roadside encounter. Kyle's eyes widened slightly. He was beginning to understand that the situation had moved far beyond anything either of them had expected. Monica finally spoke. "That is actually a very important question." Derek shot her a glare. "You do not get to advise me." "Maybe not." She nodded toward the documents. "But if those records are what I think they are, you might want to be very careful about who has touched them." The crowd reacted immediately. Several people whispered. A truck driver near the fuel pumps lowered his phone and stared at Monica. "What kind of records are they?" he asked. Monica did not answer. Instead, she looked toward the woman holding the tablet. The woman checked the screen and then looked at the tall man. "Confirmed," she said quietly. The man's expression hardened for the first time. He turned back toward Derek. "Officer Vaughn, I am going to give you one opportunity to correct this situation voluntarily." Derek felt every eye in the parking lot shift toward him. "And if I do not?" The man reached into his jacket. For a brief moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Then he removed a credential wallet and opened it. Even from 20 feet away, several people in the crowd could see the federal seal. A collective gasp swept through the rest stop. Kyle's face drained of color. Derek stared at the credential, unable to look away. But what truly unsettled him was not the badge. It was the name printed beneath it. Because the agency listed on that credential was not the one he had expected to see. Derek stared at the credential as though the words might change if he looked long enough. They did not. The federal seal was real. The identification was real. And the agency listed beneath the name was one that rarely appeared without a reason. Around the parking lot, nobody spoke. The usual sounds of the interstate seemed distant now. Even the idling trucks felt quieter. Kyle swallowed hard. "Sir," he said carefully, "I think we need to contact the chief." Derek did not answer. His attention remained fixed on the credential. The tall man closed the wallet and slipped it back into his jacket. Now, he said calmly, I am going to ask again. How many people have handled those documents? Derek looked down at the stack in his hands. For the first time all evening, he seemed unsure of himself. Why does that matter? The woman with the tablet answered before the tall man could speak. Because those files were not intended to be opened by unauthorized personnel. The crowd reacted immediately. Several people exchanged shocked looks. One truck driver muttered something under his breath. Another lowered his phone and simply stared. Derek's face tightened. Nobody told me that. Nobody needed to, the woman replied. The markings were visible. Derek glanced back at the first page. His eyes found a small code printed in the corner. Something he had ignored earlier because he had been focused on proving his theory. Cal noticed it too. Derek, he said quietly, that was there the whole time. Monica remained silent. Her expression never changed. Yet inside, she was watching every detail unfold exactly as she expected. Not because she enjoyed seeing people embarrassed. Not because she wanted revenge. Because this was what happened when assumptions replaced facts. The tall man shifted his attention toward Monica. Are you all right? Several people in the crowd immediately focused on her. It was the first time anyone from the newcomers had spoken directly to her. Monica nodded once. I am fine. Any interference with operational materials? Some. The answer made Derek's stomach drop. Operational, he repeated. The tall man ignored him. Anything compromised? Monica thought for a moment. That depends on how much was copied. The woman holding the tablet stopped typing. Copied? Derek asked. Nobody copied anything. Monica looked directly at him. You are certain? Derek hesitated. He remembered the crowd. The phones. The people filming every second of the encounter. Slowly, realization began spreading across his face. The crowd felt it too. Conversation started again, quieter this time. More cautious. If those documents belonged to some type of federal investigation, dozens of recordings might now contain images that were never meant to be public. The woman with the tablet began making notes rapidly. The tall man nodded toward Monica. When did you trigger the alert? 12 minutes before your arrival. Several people nearby exchanged confused looks. Trigger the alert. The phrase carried weight. It implied planning, training, procedure. Derek heard it too. Alert. Monica looked at him calmly. The one you never noticed. The statement landed harder than any accusation could have. Kyle closed his eyes briefly. He remembered the moment Monica slipped a hand into her jacket pocket. At the time, it seemed insignificant. Now it felt like the most important moment of the evening. The tall man folded his arms. Officer Vaughn, I am going to be very direct. The individual you stopped tonight was actively engaged in an authorized federal operation. A collective gasp swept through the rest stop. Several phones lowered immediately. Others remained raised, but visibly shaking. Derek blinked. What operation? That information is restricted. Then how was I supposed to know? The tall man studied him for several seconds. You were not supposed to know. You were supposed to determine whether a crime existed before escalating the encounter. Silence followed. Heavy silence. The kind that made every person present suddenly aware of how the evening had started. Derek looked around the parking lot. He saw the crowd, the patrol vehicles, the truck, the documents, the cameras. For the first time, he realized this was no longer a routine stop. It was becoming something much bigger. Then the radio clipped to the woman's belt suddenly came to life. A voice crackled through the speaker. Agent Reed, we have confirmation. The target location has been compromised. The tall man's expression hardened immediately. Monica's eyes narrowed. And for the first time all night, genuine concern appeared on her face. The words from the radio seemed to drain the remaining color from Agent Reed's face. The crowd did not fully understand what had been said, but they understood enough. Something important had gone wrong. Something far bigger than a traffic stop at a Texas rest area. Reed immediately stepped aside and spoke quietly into his own radio. The woman with the tablet moved closer, her fingers flying across the screen. Monica's attention shifted toward them. Her calm remained, but the concern in her eyes had not disappeared. Derek noticed it. For the first time all evening, he realized that Monica was not worried about herself. She was worried about something else entirely. What does compromised mean? He asked. Nobody answered him. Reed continued speaking into his radio. Confirm the source. A pause followed. No assumptions. I want confirmation. More static crackled through the speaker. Travelers stood frozen around the parking lot. The rest stop had become strangely quiet despite hundreds of people being present. Even those who could not hear the conversation sensed the tension. Kyle slowly removed his hat and wiped a hand across his forehead. "Derek," he said quietly, "I think we need to stop talking and start listening." Derek ignored him. His attention remained fixed on Monica. "What operation?" he demanded. "What were you doing?" Monica looked at him for several seconds before answering. "Working." "Doing what?" "My job." The answer frustrated him. "That is not an answer. It is the only one you are getting." Reed returned from the radio call. His expression had become even more serious. "Agent Hayes," he said. The crowd immediately reacted to the title. "Agent." The word spread through the gathering like an electric current. Several people repeated it to one another. A truck driver lowered his phone completely. Another simply stared at Monica in disbelief. Derek froze. Kyle closed his eyes for a moment. The truth was finally beginning to emerge. Reed continued. "We have confirmation." Monica nodded once. "How bad?" "Unknown. Source. Still being investigated." Monica looked toward the documents Derek had removed from the truck. Those files should never have been exposed. Derek felt every eye turn toward him again. He tried to defend himself. "I had no way of knowing." Reed's gaze locked onto him. "You had every opportunity to determine whether a legitimate crime existed before escalating the encounter." The statement landed hard. Several members of the crowd nodded. They had witnessed the entire interaction. They remembered the assumptions, the accusations, the insistence that something must be wrong even after nothing had been found. Monica stepped forward for the first time. Not aggressively, not dramatically, simply stepping into the conversation as the professional she had always been. "Agent Reed," she said, "what happened at the target location?" Reed looked around at the crowd before answering carefully. "Movement." Monica's jaw tightened. "Unexpected." "Yes." The woman with the tablet looked up. 3 vehicles departed approximately 20 minutes ago. Monica glanced at the clock. 20 minutes. Almost exactly when Derek had begun searching the truck. The realization settled heavily over the scene. Even people who did not understand the details understood the implication. Timing mattered. Reed folded his arms. "We do not know whether the two events are connected." "But they could be," Monica replied. Reed nodded once. Silence followed. Derek suddenly felt much smaller than he had an hour earlier. The certainty that had fueled him all evening had vanished completely. "Nobody told me she was federal," he said quietly. Reed looked directly at him. That was the point. Another uncomfortable silence followed. Monica turned toward her truck. The Freightliner sat exactly where she had parked it, looking ordinary and unremarkable beneath the bright rest stop lights. Yet everyone now understood it had never been ordinary. Neither had the woman driving it. The crowd watched her carefully. They expected anger. They expected accusations. They expected a speech. Instead, Monica simply looked at the truck and asked a single question. "How much of the operation is still intact?" Reed did not answer immediately. When he finally spoke, his voice was lower than before. "That is what worries me." Monica slowly turned back toward him. "Why?" Reed glanced toward the dark highway beyond the rest stop. His eyes narrowed. Then he said the one thing nobody expected to hear. "Because the person we were tracking may have known your identity long before tonight." The words hit the parking lot like a sudden drop in temperature. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. Even the travelers who had only been casually following the situation sensed that the story had just become something entirely different. Monica stared at Reed for several seconds. "How long?" she asked. Reed looked toward the highway before answering. "We do not know." "Months. Possibly. Years." Reed did not immediately respond. That silence told her everything. Monica slowly exhaled. For the first time that night, she looked less like a truck driver and more like the federal investigator she truly was. The transformation was subtle. Her posture changed. Her focus sharpened. The calm confidence remained, but now everyone could see the experience behind it. Kyle noticed it first. The woman standing beside the Freightliner no longer seemed like someone caught in an unfortunate misunderstanding. She looked like someone accustomed to making difficult decisions under pressure. Reed stepped closer. "We reviewed recent communications after the alert was triggered." Monica nodded. "And there were indicators." "What kind?" "Someone has been altering behavior patterns." Monica's eyes narrowed. "Deliberately?" "Very deliberately." Derek listened in silence. He understood almost none of the details, but he understood enough to realize how badly he had misjudged the situation. The documents, the truck, the operation, none of it had been random. Monica folded her arms. The rest stop was not planned. No, my route was not public. Correct. Then either someone got lucky or someone was already watching. Reed gave a single nod. The woman with the tablet looked up from her screen. There is more. Reed turned toward her. Go ahead. We matched several vehicle descriptions from the files recovered in the truck. The crowd leaned in. Even Derek could not stop himself from listening. And? Reed asked. 3 of those vehicles were recorded entering Texas this morning. Monica's expression remained neutral. Where? The woman glanced at the screen. Less than 80 miles from here. A wave of whispers spread through the parking lot. Monica looked toward the dark highway stretching beyond the rest stop. Somewhere out there, people connected to her investigation could already be moving, adjusting, hiding, disappearing. Reed seemed to be thinking the same thing. We still have time. Monica looked at him. Do we? Reed hesitated. That hesitation worried her more than anything else. The woman with the tablet suddenly received another update. Her eyes widened slightly. Agent Reed. What now? She turned the screen toward him. Reed's face hardened immediately. Monica saw it. What happened? Reed looked at her. The warehouse. Monica's jaw tightened. What about it? Empty. The answer caused an immediate reaction. Even people who had no idea what warehouse they were discussing understood that something significant had just been lost. Reed continued. According to local surveillance, activity stopped approximately 40 minutes ago. Monica checked the clock. 40 minutes. Before the stop. Before the crowd. Before the documents had been touched. Before anyone knew the operation had been exposed. They were already moving, she said quietly. Reed nodded. That is our concern. Monica thought for a moment. Then she shook her head. No, Reed frowned. No. If they were already moving, then tonight did not cause the problem. Reed stared at her. Explain. Monica pointed toward the documents still clutched in Derek's hands. If someone abandoned a major location before this encounter even started, they already knew pressure was coming. Reed considered it. Slowly, the realization spread across his face. The woman with the tablet stopped typing. Kyle looked confused. Derek looked completely lost. Monica continued. Whoever we were tracking did not react to tonight. She looked toward the highway again. They reacted to something else. Silence followed. Reed folded his arms. You think there is another leak? I think there has been one for a very long time. The statement changed everything. Suddenly the rest stop incident seemed smaller. The crowd. The misunderstanding. The public humiliation. None of it explained the larger problem. Reed looked back toward the SUVs. His expression grew darker. If you are right, he said, then we may have been looking in the wrong place this entire time. Monica nodded slowly. That is exactly what I am saying. Then her eyes shifted toward Derek. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. With realization. Because a new possibility had just occurred to her. A possibility so unexpected that it made her stop speaking entirely. Reed noticed the change immediately. What is it? Monica looked from Derek to Kyle, and then toward the patrol vehicles parked beneath the bright rest stop lights. When she finally answered, her voice was barely above a whisper. What if the leak was never inside the criminal network at all? The question seemed to freeze the entire parking lot. Agent Reed stared at Monica without speaking. The woman with the tablet stopped typing altogether. Even the travelers who understood almost nothing about the investigation could sense that a line had just been crossed. Monica looked toward the patrol vehicles again. Her mind was moving rapidly now, connecting pieces that had never seemed connected before. Think about it, she said. Every time we adjusted routes, somebody reacted. Every time surveillance expanded, locations shifted. Every time we got close, targets disappeared. Reed folded his arms. We considered that possibility months ago. Not seriously enough. Reed did not argue. The truth was obvious. If they had taken the possibility seriously, Monica would not have spent the last 18 months driving thousands of miles across multiple states, chasing a network that always seemed one step ahead. Kyle looked between them. You think somebody in law enforcement was feeding information? Nobody answered immediately. That silence was answer enough. Derek felt his stomach tighten. The entire situation had moved so far beyond the rest stop encounter that he barely understood what was happening anymore. Monica continued. The warehouse was cleared before tonight. The movement happened before this stop. That means somebody warned them. Reed nodded slowly. And you think the warning came from inside? I think it always did. The woman with the tablet suddenly raised her head. Agent Reed. What is it? She turned the screen toward him. I just received a supplemental report. Reed studied the information. His expression hardened immediately. Monica noticed. What did they find? Reed looked up. The vehicles that left the warehouse. What about them? One of them stopped. Monica narrowed her eyes. Where? Reed glanced at the screen again. 23 miles north of here. A ripple moved through the crowd. Monica's attention sharpened instantly. Why did it stop? Unknown. How long? Approximately 6 minutes. Monica exchanged a look with Reed. Neither needed to say what both were thinking. 6 minutes was enough time for a meeting. A handoff. A conversation. Information. Reed turned toward the woman holding the tablet. Anything else? Yes. Her voice grew quieter. A local vehicle was recorded entering the same area during that time window. Reed's eyes narrowed. What kind of vehicle? The woman hesitated. A marked patrol unit. Nobody spoke. Derek felt the blood drain from his face. Kyle stared at the screen. Monica looked neither surprised nor satisfied. Only focused. Can they identify the unit? She asked. The woman nodded slowly. They already have. Reed took a long breath. Do not say it out loud. The crowd immediately sensed the tension. Travelers who had been recording all evening suddenly lowered their phones. Nobody knew the details, but everyone understood the implication. Somewhere in the local system, a patrol vehicle had appeared exactly where it should not have been. Derek stepped forward. That does not prove anything. Reed looked at him. No, it does not. Monica nodded. But it gives us a place to start. The woman with the tablet received another notification. Her eyes widened slightly. Agent Reed. Now what? Headquarters wants immediate review of every interaction connected to the operation over the last 12 months. Reed nodded. That was coming. Monica looked toward the dark highway stretching beyond the rest stop. The night felt different now. Larger. More complicated. The stop that began with suspicion and assumptions had exposed something none of them expected. Not just a compromised operation. Not just a possible leak. An entirely new direction. Reed followed her gaze. You realize this changes everything. Monica nodded. I know. The investigation just got bigger. I know that too. Reed studied her for a moment before allowing himself the smallest smile. For what it is worth, you handled tonight better than most people would have. Monica glanced toward Derek. That was never the difficult part. Reed followed her eyes. Around them, federal personnel were already making calls, documenting evidence, and securing information. The focus had shifted completely. Nobody was asking whether Monica belonged there anymore. Nobody was questioning her truck. Nobody was questioning her identity. The truth had settled over the parking lot for everyone to see. Yet as Monica looked at the rows of trucks, the patrol vehicles, and the endless highway beyond the rest stoplights, one thought refused to leave her mind. Because if a leak really existed inside the system, then somewhere out there was a person who had spent years hiding in plain sight. And for the first time since the operation began, Monica believed they might finally be close enough to find them.